We wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are producing on, the Woodjuk people. We wish to acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make to the life of this city and this region.
Hi guys, welcome to Project Sweet, Loud, Untamed Tarts, or as we know it, Project
Slut. I'm a slut.
Project S.L.U.T, the show that educates and entertains all things sex in an inclusive and positive way. Let's put power back into being a slut and fight back slut shaming with your host, Lavi.
Do you want to start? Why don't you start?
Hello guys, how are we today on this fine Tuesday? Actually, no, it's not fine because it's raining outside.
I actually kind of like this weather though. Like, I kind of like the kind of cool days that we get every now and then.
I mean, I feel like we've had a lot of these days and I like the sun and things.
Really? No, I'm more of a winter person.
Yeah, I mean, I think like growing up in Little Albany, like it was always like this, like overcast and cold, and then moving to Perth, I was like, holy shit, it is hot in here. But here we are.
Here we are on a very grey Tuesday morning. Feels nice though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel pretty relaxed today. Excited about what we're talking about today.
Yeah, and we're talking about consent and consent at sex parties, in particular hedonism, because I feel like they kind of set a really good example of how consent should be applied in everyday life.
Yeah, I think so as well.
So we'll dive deep into that later in the episode, but for right now, we are going to do Montana's Munchies.
Dun dun.
And I was just saying this to you before, I'm going to be surprised who can join us live, because I'm like, shouldn't everyone else be at work?
Yeah, I mean, I reckon like if like we do go live and we get some people that are like watching us like under their desk or like they're outside having a ciggy or like a vape and they're like, oh, they're going live, and then like their boss is like, get back inside, and they're like, yeah, I'm just doing emails.
Do you want to grab the mask?
Little Peter A mask. Gorgeous.
No, I'm going live now. All right, we're live. Woohoo!
Good morning, fam. Oh, it's on my pineapple. Hang on.
So we're here doing our Montana's Munchies again for our 6th episode, which is coming out this Sunday, and it's on consent. How are you feeling about this one?
I mean, the last few that you've given me have been like pretty shit, and I really want something nice for a change. Maybe something sweet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's definitely not sweet. I feel like you're either going to like this or you're not going to like this.
I mean, I'm in a pretty good mood today, so for trying new things, you know?
Okay.
I hear rattling.
Yeah, there's a lot of rattling. All right. Are you ready for this?
No.
No? Okay, take.
I feel something wet on the... This is pate.
I don't know what it is.
It's pate, isn't it?
I don't know what it is. You have to put it in your mouth.
Like, oh no, liver parfait? No, whatever, let me say it. Oh.
Parfait's yogurt.
Oh, I think I know what this is. I like this. This is the kind of stuff I have on my grazing board.
Oh, yeah.
Am I on the money?
Mm-hmm. It's pate.
Fuck yeah. See, I'm good today.
Would you like
Can I
another?
have some more?
Yeah, fuck yeah, you can.
Let's have some brunch of pate. That was actually really delicious. Like, there's something about pate to me that's like kind of like sweet and like creamy, and it's like really like wholesome to eat. I think it's like an acquired taste.
I
Like,
love it though.
like I used to hate it when I was a kid, but ever since like I've gotten older, I'm just like into my cheese and my meats and all those fine things in life. And yeah, pate is nice.
An absolute slut for a cheese board.
Same. I'm going to be making a really good one New Year's Eve, just saying.
Okay, so we're going into today's topic, and we're talking about consent and what consent means and why it's important, and consent at sex parties, and a whole bunch of other different things you'll hear throughout this episode. You and I went to hedonism the weekend that just went past, and it was a chance for us to get to talk to some people about what they thought about consent and what they thought about hedonism as well. So you'll hear that later on.
Yeah, we got a few good little, I guess, like chats with some people that were going and their vibe and, you know, how many hedos they've been to and what their, I guess, description of consent is. So
yeah, and the reason I asked people how many hedonisms they've been to is because I feel like their answer could potentially change on the meaning of consent from someone who's either their first time or they've only been a couple times to someone who's been there going for years.
Yeah.
I feel like your definition and experience of hedonism would be different, so we like to get a variety of answers from different people.
Yeah, like I think going back to my first hedonism event, which was it like in 2020, I think? Potentially, yeah. Like I was like, still quite new to the scene. That was my first one. And I was like quite cautious about asking like people on, oh, hey, like, do you mind if I kiss you? Or, how would you feel about this? Or even just like, oh, like I like your outfit. Like I'm not going to, touch it, like, because that's, So I think, yeah, like a lot of people's, I guess, views on consent change the more you're around that scene.
Yeah, I know that from my experience. Consent was a bit new to me because I've never been in an environment where it was so predominant. And that's why I said earlier that I think hedonism is a good base for learning consent, because a lot of people don't realize how many things they could be doing that's not actually consensual.
Yeah.
And so we were looking up definitions of consent.
So my, I guess, description of consent, so, pretty simple. So asking before attempting anything with someone and waiting for a yes or no answer. So keeping it pretty simple.
And one of the things that I found with a lot of the answers that we got from people were it was always an enthusiastic yes. If it's not an enthusiastic yes, it's a no. Because previous ideologies were you have to say no, but that means everything else means yes. Whereas now the definitions have kind of changed. So unless it is a very hard, like, fuck yes, it's a no.
Yeah.
Not even just like, and this has been brought up as well, and you said it too, consent is also body language. So someone's like, oh, yeah, maybe, like, that's not consent.
Yeah, so I have a really good example of that when it comes to like body language and stuff. So, I went to a bar like one time and, this one guy said to me, oh, hey, like, can I get you a drink? And I was like, oh, no, that's okay. But thank you anyway. And obviously when I was saying it, my like body language is quite open, friendly. Like, I was just, giving him manners. And then he said, oh, like, you're playing hard to get. Like, that clearly means that you do want a drink. And then I said, no, it's fine, thank you. And then it took like 3 attempts for me to then be like, look, mate, I said no. And he's like, oh, you should have said it the first time. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, no. Like, so I think body language, if you're an overly friendly person, it can sometimes come across that you're playing hard to get, or you're trying to like be like that mystery that's like secretly saying like, oh yeah, like I'm so down for this, Yeah, and that brings me to this article that I was reading earlier where it said almost a quarter of young men think women find it flattering to be persistently pursued even if they aren't interested. In that man's mind, he thought, oh, I'm being like flattering. This woman wants me to chase her, and even though she's clearly saying I'm not interested, I'm going to ignore what she's saying because in my mind, she's saying yes. Yeah, that is definitely not a thing.
Yeah, it's definitely not.
Educate yourself, people.
Well, that's our job.
Yes, that's why we're here today.
So there were lots of statistics, and it was quite overwhelming because some of them were quite confronting. So one of the ones from this article said around 1 in 7 young Australians believe a man would be justified to force sex if the woman initiated it, but then changed her mind and pushed him away.
Yeah, that's no respect there.
It just baffles me that someone would think in this day and age, just because someone started something, and if they're like, oh, I don't want to keep going.
Yeah, change their mind.
Yeah, they change their mind, that the guy would be like, well, she started it, I'm going to just finish off before.
That to me, like when you read that statistic, that was like made me feel quite anxious.
Yeah,
because,
1 in 7.
Yeah.
1 in 7. That's not even a lot of people.
Yeah, that's scary, man.
Yeah, so I felt really uncomfortable as well.
Yeah. To be honest, like, I think, you know, consent needs to be taught a lot more in, like, freaking high schools and even primary.
Yeah, I mean,
you know?
I think, so they are starting to, you know, dibble into teaching consent at schools. I think it's starting at the end of next year.
That's cool.
I mean, like anything, it's going to be new. It's going to have trials and everything. But the fact that they're starting that, I think it's really good, because I feel like, even like you said, even starting in primary school, just teaching, you know, little kids, if someone says no, it's a no. Like, you just stop.
Yeah, just like really simple.
Yeah, and I think having that verbal consent with anything, you know, whether it's, you know, playing with my toys, or even if, you know, someone, you know, if you're in high school and someone's talking to you in the library and you just don't feel comfortable in being able to say no, I think learning that at a young age kind of sets up some good stones for, you know, really well-respected adults.
I feel like if they kind of incorporated, like, the consent stuff with, like, you know, sex education, I think that would probably go like part and parcel. I think it would work in a way, but if it's like a separate thing, then I guess, yeah, you kind of have to, like, play it by ear and see how that one goes.
The reason consent is important in everyday life, not in just like a sexual manner, is that, you know, if you've never had your consent violated, which sadly as a woman I have had my consent violated many times, I feel like it makes you feel less of a person when someone's not respecting your basic needs. And if you don't want something and someone's still persistent, it just kind of makes you feel like, do you not even consider me as a person? Do you not respect my rights?
Individual, yeah.
And I think if you can practice consent in just even the smaller situations, you know, it could be, you know, you're sitting on the bus, you're sitting like too close to someone, you know, just checking, hey, is it like, okay, am I crowding your space? Or whether, you know, you're at a bar and you want to approach someone, you know, you can just ask them, hey, is it okay that I talk to you? I mean, it's not a weird thing to ask, because I feel like the other person would respect you more.
Yeah.
And one of the first examples I had of that was at my first hedonism, where a guy sat down next to me and he asked, can I sit next to you? And I thought that was the weirdest question, because no one ever asks. If there was a free seat, they would just sit there.
Yeah.
And then he was like, because it was a bit squished, just the way everyone was sitting, he asked, is it okay if that he just kind of like, his body was kind of leaning on mine, and his arm, I think his arm might have been around my shoulder. It was around someone else's as well. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. But literally every single time throughout that night, and every time I see this person at hedonism now, even though the years have gone past, always asks for consent. Like, can I give you a hug? It's just nice that someone actually asks if you're okay with being hugged, because not everyone likes to be hugged.
Yeah, so I think, you know, consent is important to use, like you said, not just in like a kind of sexual setting, but in your like everyday life, because it kind of like sets, you know, like a first impression when you, like, you know, meet someone kind of thing, if you know what I mean. So like, for examples, like, you know, if you're out, like you said, and like someone sits next to you and like, you know, like they're not, it's like kind of like talking to you, but they're like in your space, and you're like, okay, you didn't really ask to sit that close to me, and then you start freaking out, and then it can be triggering. So I think kind of sussing out like the environment is really important.
Yeah, no, I remembered when I was doing my master's and I was in a genders class, and I remember this girl said to me, oh, do you mind if I compliment you? And I just thought that was like so cute. I was like, yes, your compliments are welcomed. But and then she proceeded to tell me, like, you know, some people feel uncomfortable when strangers compliment them. And I was like, yeah, I get that. Not to be sexist, but I don't find girls, when they compliment me, have like an ulterior motive. So I feel like their compliments are always welcomed. Whereas like when a guy compliments me, I'm like, what do you want? What do you really want?
Yeah. So I reckon by practicing consent in everyday situations, you show that you value the choices of others, and it's important to ask for consent before like hugging, any kind of touching, and asking sincerely so others understand it's okay to say yes or no. So I think that, you know, as much as we talk about like, you know, being positive and like we have laughs and things like that, and, you know, I think talking about our own experiences in terms of, you know, like where consent has been, you know, either like violated, And I do have a story that I'm pretty comfortable speaking about because I think a lot of people can probably relate to it. So when I was 21, I was living down south and I went to a party. It was about 2 hours out of like Albany, and it was on like a vacant block. And I went with my cousin and her partner at the time, right? So like the night was pretty good. Obviously I was like chatting to this guy who was going. He was a bit older than me, so he drove there and things like that. And then towards the end of the night, my cousin and her partner decided to leave, and you know, something told me that I should have gone with them, but I wanted to kind of hang out with this guy and potentially like see what happened. And you know, because when you're young, alcohol, there's a party, you know, like you're having fun and all that stuff. And because I was, you know, still like a virgin at that time, you know, I met up with this guy towards the end of the night, and he said, oh, let's go into my car and like have cuddles. And I was like, yeah, okay, sounds good. Like, didn't even think about the kind of situation I was about to put myself into. So we go on the back seat and, you know, we start cuddling, and then he starts, you know, like just like touching my boobs and starts kissing me. So I pull back and I said, no, I'm not comfortable with that. Like, do you mind removing your hand like from my throat? And then he just said, oh, just relax, you know, like let's have some fun. And then, as you know, I was trying to get away, and I said, no, I don't want you to do that. It was pretty bad. And like, I literally was screaming, like, help. Like, I just like was yelling it. So like, all I like remember was like literally putting my dress back on, and I like ran as far as I could down the road. And I just like waved for like any car. Like, I didn't even care. What I'm saying is, you know, if someone does say no to you in like a really like serious manner, like respect it, because like you've done something to that person that's going to stay with them for the rest of their life.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like you, there's hundreds and thousands of other women who have unfortunately been violated. And it sucks, and it stays with you forever.
Yeah.
And, you know, coming out and speaking about it is really brave, because not a lot of people can. And that's really brave of you to come out and like share your story, because the more people do, the more people raise awareness and see how serious and common this issue is, when it really shouldn't be.
Yeah, definitely, I agree.
And going back to those statistics from earlier, one that really stuck to me was that 1 in 6 Australian women and 1 in 13 Australian men will experience one or more encounters with sexual violence in their lifetimes. And unfortunately, I've had my consent violated multiple times throughout my life. And, you know, a lot of the stuff that happened, I was quite young and I didn't know what consent really meant. One of the instances that comes to mind is when I was in my later years of high school, and I was with someone who was being very, very forceful. And although I had shown interest earlier, I had no interest in being physical then. And he kept pushing and touching and, you know, not taking the signs of me moving my face away or me kind of pushing back as a no. And the encounter was done. You know, he really didn't do too much to me, but I felt like because I didn't say a hard no or a hard back off, that I couldn't say anything to anyone. And even to this day, I feel so grossed out by this person who did this to me. And I feel annoyed with myself, because if I was taught consent earlier, I would have known, regardless of if I showed interest first, and that's what I wanted beforehand, because I didn't want it then, that was a violation of my consent. And like Montana's story, there are so many instances like this where it's the same pattern and same behavior of entitled men who don't take no or your body language as a no.
Are you ready for this?
Who is he, right?
Who is he? What an enigma.
Listen to season 2, episode 1 if you want to know who he is. But how's your night going?
Oh, yeah, so far so good. You know, no excuses, play like a champ.
Half-ass continuing this while you smoke a cigar.
A pipe with bubbles coming out of it.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so what does consent mean to you?
Okay, there is a very lengthy explanation with examples on our website. Link in the bio.
Yes, link in the bio.
Link in the bio.
And how important is consent?
Consent is like important in all parts of life. It makes everything wonderful. But also, like be cool. Like if you're walking through the dance floor and like you bump into someone, like there's intention is important. Like intention is important. Yeah, like intention.
Yeah.
That was awful.
Yeah.
I'm getting cancelled.
Tell me that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, B1, and we'll go with B2. All right, so B1, how many hedonisms have you been to?
The first one.
Are you serious? Oh,
first one.
man. Are you excited?
Sort of nervous.
What makes you nervous?
Never been to one, so I don't know what to expect.
My best advice, and I tell this to everybody, is have zero expectations.
Yeah, I don't have any expectations.
But I've met the best friends here. Like, this is like playgroup for me. I'm in like fucking daycare here.
I think about 6.
And why do you keep coming back?
Because they're fun and they're like carefree and everyone's so caring and like kind and accepting that I just keep coming back.
This would be my second.
And how are you finding them?
Nerve-wracking at first, but I ease into it pretty quickly.
I'm starting to lose count now. This might be the 6th or the 7th.
Ooh, seasoned veteran.
This is the second time.
Oh, and you finding it good?
Yes.
Okay, so I've been attending hedonism for about 3 years. I've been to most of the events, but not every single one. But for the last 3 years, majority of the hedonism events I've either worked as a hostess or attended.
What brings you back?
Well, the people, obviously, like it's a great crowd, and the play's quite fun too.
It's about being around like-minded people. Like, enjoy that crowd, having that openness. That's been the best thing I think we've enjoyed.
A situation where you're able to, like, express yourself. And it makes me a better person because I'm able to, like, be my true, authentic person.
There's an aspect of freedom. You can be whatever you want and whoever you want to be. And everyone's very genuine.
There's no judgment.
There's no judgment.
No judgment at all.
I like going to hedonism because it allows me to be free from my general life and have a shit load of fun.
Fuck yeah. Only just got into the scene. We found out through Red Hot Pie about hedonism, and it was just a great way to kind of get out there, meet people, like-minded people in more of a party atmosphere rather than going on one-on-one dates.
And what's it like working as a hostess?
I love it. My first ever hedo, I worked as a hostess. I had no idea what to expect, but I had the best time ever.
I think everyone puts in a really good effort. Like, when everyone comes, they bring a lot of energy. They bring a lot of good energy as well, so everyone is really mindful about consent and getting to know one another and, like, looking out for everyone else. And the outfits are amazing.
Yeah.
No one does anything by halves here. The Halloween one was spectacular.
We're talking about today is mostly consent. So what does consent mean to you guys?
I think mutual understanding.
Like a confirmation of mutual understanding. Like everybody needs to be on the same page and there can be no mistake.
Topic, we're talking all about consent and consent at sex parties and stuff. So what's your kind of definition on consent?
So obviously being new to the scene and everything like that, both my husband and I were really big on consent. So when we're going to a party or whatnot, like if we allude that we want to play or whatnot, consent has to be given, like whether it's one-on-one, three-way, four-way, whatever. It's like, can I kiss you? Can I touch you? Like, it's massive. You have to do it.
Consent mean to you?
Consent means, like, something for me is that the worst fear for me is for a chick to feel uncomfortable because I'm quite a big dude. Like, I'm quite tall, a little bit intimidating if you look at me. So for me, the worst thing could be a girl feeling uncomfortable. So she has to be extremely enthusiastically, completely into it for me to even make the first move. Like, there needs to be zero doubt. She basically needs to be down my throat before I think she's keen.
How would you sum up consent if you had to give like a description?
Consent's been interesting with this whole thing. I'm almost over the top, so being very mindful of making sure, asking questions all the time. Yeah. Do you mind if I do this? Do you mind if I do that? And making sure you do get that answer back before going on with anything. It's a lot more mindful in this sort of scene than it is in everyday public.
What does consent mean to you?
Consent, as a security guard at the Odd Hedo, consent means that for me is protection. So I have to protect people from and enforce consent?
I think consent is everything. I think it shows that you show respect for the people around you, and you shows you respect yourself as well.
So, what is your definition of consent?
There needs to be a clear yes, I want that.
Your definition of consent?
Consent is enthusiastic yes in the absence of a no.
Wow, I keep hearing the word enthusiastic as well today.
Yeah, I feel like it has to be enthusiastic because anyone can just lay back and be like, yeah, I want it, but do you actually want it?
You love that, I love that.
I guess it's just an explicit yes that someone is definitely into whatever situation or whatever thing's going on. An enthusiastic yes and making sure everyone's happy.
Consent means just like someone accepting no for an answer and also asking, hey, is it okay if I touch your bum before I touch your bum?
Yeah, like not grope your butt while they're touching.
No, yeah, no. And you know what? Everyone gets like scared about coming to hedonism because it's like a sex party, but you get more sexual harassment going to a normal club than you do going to hedonism.
Like, it's like, this is not rapture, right?
Yeah.
Enthusiastic, yes.
Enthusiastic? So what if I was like, yeah, alright.
Yeah, it wouldn't really excite me.
It has to be like a fuck yes, B2.
Has to be a fuck yes.
It's that time again. War stories direct from your local working girls.
All right, cool. So, a few weeks ago, I had this like Christmas like staff party in the city, and you know, this person and I were going like to the venue where he was like dropping me off, and he said to me before we got in the car, "Oh, like bring your Black Widow with you." So for those who don't know what the Black Widow is, I always talk about it on here. So it's like from Girls Unhinged. It's like a clitoral like stimulation vibrator. It's amazing. And he said, cool. So we've got like about like a 20-minute drive before I drop you to the venue. So while I'm driving, I want you to turn your Widow on and have it like on your clit for the whole time. So then when we get to the event, within like 3 minutes, like you have to come. And I was like, oh, okay, I like this. It's a bit fun. You know, like going into my staff party nice and perky and happy. So obviously I did come because, you know, when you're sitting in a position with your legs closed and like the Widow is like literally pushing on you, and not to mention he was pushing on me every few seconds, and I was like, oh God, okay, this is really, really hard. And then, yeah, pretty much, and yeah, dropped me off and he was like, have a good party. And I was like, yep. So I'm just like skipping across the car, like, you know, see for like, yeah, so that was pretty fun.
You know what I love about this story?
It's spicy, yeah.
Is that we were all waiting for him to come back. And we even joked about you guys having sex and that's why he was late to return. But the funniest thing is that's not the reason why he was late. Why was he late? What did he have to come back and do?
He has to drop off my vape because I literally was walking into the venue, and because I literally just had such a great, like, I forgot that my vape was like, literally I just stepped like out of the car and it was like on the seat, and I was like, oh my God, my vape. And he was like, oh shit, okay. He's like, you have to come to me. So I had to like literally walk, I think like a few minutes down the road, and he's just like walking up like, here's your vape. And I was like, what a man. Like dropping off my vape, because people know that I'm very protective of my vape, and if it's taken from me, I'm like a grumpy panda. Like, don't mess with the panda.
It's so funny because like this is the second time people have like suggested vaping be a topic on the podcast. So on the weekend someone said, can vaping, or like, you know, like victim support for like if you have a partner who vapes. And like I could not resonate even more, because like when you guys are in bed and you think it's like a nice moment, and then they have that freak out because they think they don't know where the vape's gone in bed.
That's me, like every morning.
See, I feel victimized because like I feel like I'm a victim of this trend.
Yeah.
And however, I know that my partner person says that there is nothing better than having like a puff of vape just after you have sex, and I'm like, I just don't get it.
I'm so for that. I support that 100%, because it's just like a rush of like, you know, you've like come and everything, and then, you know, that little hit of like nicotine, that little like head spin, you're just like, wow, like I'm literally like in heaven. Like
I'm gonna definitely put that up as a poll on the project page and see how many people like enjoy that first puff. It's like in those olden day movies, but like less cool. When they like light a cigarette in bed.
I mean, there's like no better feeling like when you get like a new vape from the shop, or you know, and it's like in its packaging, and it's like Christmas, and you're opening it up, and it's like that first initial like hit that you like take. It's like a big fat blanket, like wrapping its arms around you, like everything is going to be okay. Like your day is going to get so much better because you've had this like just buzz of nicotine. I know I sound like an addict.
You know what's like the funniest thing is that you described your experience with opening a vape up with more description than you did with your horror story and your orgasm.
And I'm passionate about the vape. You know, it's a love relationship we have, and it's not ever going to be broken.
That's all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed tuning into Project S.L.U.T. Stay safe, stay whorish, and we'll see you soon.